Well, I'm joined now by Roger McNamee, an early investor in Facebook, who's spent the last few years as an activist fighting to reform the technology industry. It's very good to have you with us. Do you think this was perhaps too little too late by Twitter?
Indisputably, but welcome nonetheless. Ben, the fundamental issue here, when President Trump says this is an invasion of freedom of speech, he forgets the fundamental thing that the First Amendment only protects us from restrictions by government. And in this particular case, the House of Representatives is preparing an article of impeachment for inciting insurrection, which is just about the greatest offense a president could possibly commit. And we're at this thing where you're sitting there and saying, indeed, we have 377,000 people dead in the United States because of a pandemic that Trump denied and then failed to try to mitigate. And so the idea that it's taken this long to get it done is absolutely the question of the moment. But I do think it was something that, at long last, they've done the right thing.
I mean, a lot of people would say that President Trump, through Twitter, has spent the last 4 years using the platform to bully, to intimidate, to encourage aggression in some situations, and that actually, this move potentially looks more like a business decision by Twitter when the value of having him on there is diminishing as he's only in office for another 11 days.
No, I think that is indisputably correct. I think the internet platforms, that would include Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and the smaller ones as well, all, I think, are guilty of exploiting Trump's outrageous behavior for profit. They have business models based on attention, and as a consequence, they promote and they amplify content that triggers emotional responses. So hate speech, disinformation, conspiracy theories are actually the lubricant for their business model. Trump was manna from heaven for all these platforms, and they're no better than these members of Trump's cabinet that are fleeing the sinking ship at the last minute. I mean, seriously, no praise should be offered. I welcome the change, but I do not give any praise at all to these companies. I think they're doing the bare minimum at the last possible instant.
I just wonder, though, whether there's a case to be made that there is a benefit to us all of having an open platform where we know we can go if we want to find out, in some situations, the innermost thoughts of the most powerful man on the planet, which he still is. He leads the biggest economy. He's the commander-in-chief of the strongest military in the world. And by cutting him off Twitter, we no longer have that insight into what he's thinking.
Well, to be clear, Ben, let's think about this, because before Trump, we never saw the innermost thoughts of the chief executive of the United States. We've now run a 4-year experiment where we have 377,000 people dead in 10 months from a pandemic that in every other country, the loss ratio was a small fraction of what it is in the United States. His innermost thoughts, I think, have come with an enormous cost. And what happened on Wednesday in the Capitol, that insurrection, we came so close to having hundreds dead. I mean, that could have gone so much worse than it went. And you sit there and you say to yourself, what is the value of those innermost thoughts? And I think the problem is that Twitter has proven it's the wrong platform for that. Facebook is the wrong platform. Instagram, YouTube, the wrong platform. I agree with you. I would love to find one that worked better, but it's going to have a different business model, and it's going to have to be run by people with much more of a civic-minded nature than the people running the tech companies today.
I dare say there's someone else considering whether there's now space for a new platform, social media tech platform, and that may well be the president himself. He's talked about launching his own, I suppose, version of Twitter that he would be in control of. No one could shut him down. No one could stop him saying what he wanted. How plausible do you think that is?
Well, I think anything is possible in this environment, but it's not my first concern. I think if you're an American citizen today who spends as much time as I would focusing on government and how we operate, the big concern right now is we are tottering our precipice of losing the thing the country's had for 244 years. And we have to rebuild the country. We have to stop the pandemic first, rebuild the economy, and then rebuild democracy. And ideally, Trump will become a sideshow, and we'll be able to concentrate on doing that, starting with President-elect Biden, and then hopefully his successors will be people who will have a sense of duty and will actually do the right thing to make America at least a country we can be proud of, instead of one that is so horrible to its own citizens and the citizens of the rest of the world.
Roger, very grateful for your time here on BBC News. Roger McNamee.
It's a great honor. Thank you, Ben.